Hello, welcome. This is Politics South Africa, and today we're going to talk about a lot. There's a lot on the agenda. There's the extraordinary events in the military last week, where we saw um, military exercises off the coast of South Africa, a naval drill, and we saw Russia, Brazil, China, Iran, and others participating. Massive controversy around that. We'll talk a bit about education. We had an extraordinary week where lots and lots and lots of children were so happy. They're going on, stepping up with life, going on to university, all kinds of institutions of higher learning, some going off to work and so forth. And it's fantastic, fantastic to see. And finally, we'll talk about the Democratic Alliance. Mondli, it's so good to connect with you again. I want to talk about the military. I want to talk about what happened with that naval drill off Simonstown.
Yes, Melek, it was extraordinary in the sense that you saw the president's instructions to the military. The president had specifically said to the defense minister who passed on the instructions to the South African National Defense Force that Iran should not be part of the exercises. Obviously, as we know, all the different BRICS countries were supposed to partake jointly in the exercises. But because of the geopolitical tensions around the world and the fact that Iran, the United States, had specifically threatened South Africa around its coziness, supposed coziness to Iran, so the president was trying to balance diplomacy with practicality, by saying that, look, there's no need to provoke the United States by having Iran there. And it seems like the Iranians kind of also understood that, look, it's okay for us not to participate in order for you as South Africa to preserve your relations with basically the biggest power on earth. And it turns out that the military totally ignored the commander-in-chief. And it is a huge thing. If the chiefs of the defense force do not listen to their commander-in-chief, what does that mean about the chain of command?
Chapter 11 of the Constitution is very clear on this matter. It reads, the president as head of the national executive is commander-in-chief of the defense force and must appoint the military command of the defense force. It goes on to say, command of the defense force must be exercised in accordance with the directions of the cabinet member responsible for defense under the authority of the president. And I agree with you. I think, we are not Burkina Faso. We are not a country that's run by the military. We chose, we believe in civilian government. We believe that we elect a servant of ours, and in this case, it's Cyril Ramaphosa. We elect him. We say, go forth, young man, and do what we want you to do, and command our forces. And if we believe that we are friends with Iran, then okay, fine, command our forces to come and do military naval drills off Simonstown, off the coast of Cape Town. But we do not let the leaders of the defense force, who are under the authority of the president, to do this. I think the law is clear here. The constitution is clear. The people of South Africa are clear what they want. And this seems to me to have been a blatant defiance of the instruction of the president of South Africa. So my question would be, surely the president, first of all, should not be sitting on his hands and saying, oh, I'm having this inquiry and so forth. The first and clearest thing would be the Minister of Defense should be called in and she should be told, I gave you an instruction, and the instruction was that this should not happen. And you said, yes, this is the instruction I'm issuing. And I think she should actually tender her resignation. She should say to the president, I do not have the authority over the defense force clearly to do this, and therefore I'm I'm stepping down. So off just from the get-go, this is incredible for me that she's still in office, that she is the one who issues from her office a statement saying there'll be an inquiry into this matter, and we'll come back to you in a week. Quite frankly, she is as much a player, as implicated in this issue as everyone else in the defense force. And so she shouldn't be anywhere near this. And as a political appointee, I think President Cyril Ramaphosa is absolutely justified to say, please give me your resignation, not tomorrow, not in a week, not in a month, but today. And he should have got that resignation on Friday.
Oh, what a dreamer you are, Justice Malala, to believe that Cyril Ramaphosa is going to demand anything such. That is not going to happen because his name is Cyril Ramaphosa. That's not going to happen. But I think, let me add a caveat here before coming back and answering your question. I think it must be stated up front that we as South Africa have every right to set our own relations with whoever we want to set our relations with.
Absolutely.
Including Iran. I think the fact that the United States hates Iran does not mean that we should also hate Iran. And Iran is a member of BRICS like we are, and those relations are what we engage in, and the military exercises that were supposed to happen, Iran's involvement was very legitimate, but the timing was wrong. I mean, like at the time that it was happening, there was a huge crackdown on protests in Iran. People say it's between 2,000 and 4,000 people who may have been killed by the Iranian government in those pro-democracy protests, and many thousands more arrested, thousands more injured. So the optics were not right, but I think it should not take away our right to make those decisions for ourselves. But I do respect the president's decision to make sure that kind of like South Africa's interests are looked after, in the sense that we do not unnecessarily poke the bear, as people like to say, kind of like in relation to Donald Trump these days.
But I think there are 2 points of this whole thing. The first one is that I'm trusting Cyril Ramaphosa that he did issue the instruction. That instruction was issued by him to the Minister of Defense, who then issued the instruction to the Defense Force chiefs, who then issued the instruction to the naval chiefs, who then said to the ships and the boats and whatever, the submarines, no, the Iranians must stay back. If I trust Cyril Ramaphosa that he issued the instruction, that is a constitutional matter. And the constitutional matter is that if he, the civilian commander-in-chief, says, we are not doing this, guys, because the politics are, whatever the optics or the politics of the matter are, we're not doing this, then the instruction has to be carried out. No one is allowed to go off and say, Mina, on my own, Ramaphosa can go and jump, I'm not doing this. Whether it's General Rizani Mapwanya, whether it's Vice Admiral Monde Lubisi, or whoever it may be, they have no right. So constitutionally, there is a problem here. And the problem is that Ramaphosa's in clear instruction, and I'm trusting Ramaphosa and his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, when they say they issued an instruction. The second bit is the politics, which you refer to. The politics, as I said, you're absolutely right. We South Africa must choose its stance, stand by it, revise it if it needs be. That's South African policy. The implications for Ramaphosa and whether the United States likes it or not, that's a totally different matter. That's a political matter, that's a geopolitical matter, but that's South Africa's place to make policy and stand by it and succeed or fail, whatever that happens. So my issue is on the first matter, and we'll come back to your matter. But on the first matter, on the constitutional issue, there's a constitutional issue here. And if Njimutsaha, the Minister of Defense, does not step down, and if Cyril Ramaphosa does not fire her, then we are saying it's fine for the defense force chiefs to then say, you know what, you, the elected representatives that Monthly on May 29 last year went and voted for, you are not allowed. We as the army can do as whatever we like. And that means that we are saying it's fine. Look at Traore, or look at all these tin pot dictators running around in their uniforms are okay. And we are okay with that happening in South Africa. I think it's a very dangerous place for us.
Very much so.
And I think it's particularly dangerous because General Ruzani Mapanya last year went to Iran and made pronouncements. Now, if he was making pronouncement as mandated by the defense minister and the president, then I would say it's fine. But actually, his place is to take instruction from the president and the defense minister. It's not to make policy. If he likes Russia today and Ramaphosa says, you know what, we're going to attack Russia, he takes instruction. He doesn't make policy, and he should stay away from that. So it's dangerous because this is the second time we're seeing a defense force chief or the defense chiefs doing something that's sort of like, oh, Baba, did I vote for a government or did I vote for the army? I didn't vote for the army. And so that's fundamentally my problem on the first issue.
And that is why this is a bed that Cyril Ramaphosa made for himself, basically, because last year when this happened, the defense force chief went to Iran, as you point out, and made huge statements, political statements, diplomatic statements, which were disowned by the presidency and by the Department of International Relations. And there were no consequences for him. And in fact, what happened was that the defense minister came out in defense of him and made some weird statements supporting clearly what was like a defense force chief who had stepped out of line, and the president called them both in, and he had a conversation with them, and came up with a very mealy-mouthed statement that, kind of like, no, the matter is now over. Now, how do you expect that same head of the SANDF to think anything of you other than that you are a limp wrist? And he will do as he wishes. So the president being defied this week was something that basically he had it coming. And should he not put his foot down this time around, then I think that he will basically have ensured that the perception that the public has of him basically being a weakling and amoebic back and having an amoebic spine will have been proven correct. But I mean, like, I do not expect much to come out of the board of inquiry that the defense minister has now set up to probe the matter. I think there will be a finding, but whether there will be any action out of that finding, I think is extremely doubtful.
This is for me. It's a confounding. It's a confounding matter, Monji, that you have an army that we sent the army to the DRC, for example, as part of peacekeeping missions and so forth. Now, the state of the army, from what I
And
can
may I correct you here? Ne? It is the army is but one wing of the
yeah,
military,
yeah. So the
yeah,
army, the air force, the
the
navy,
navy. So
yeah,
let's say the military.
the military, yes. Um, but particularly the army, because they were on the ground in the DRC. Uh, they were surrounded in that town where they had to beg for help and to be rescued. So, Mondli, what I'm saying is this is an army and this is a military that we've sent to places like the DRC, massive fighting in eastern DRC last year, and they've let us down. So, someone like Ruzani Mapanya is not sort of the sharpest axe in the block. This is not someone I would say, look how wonderful our army is. And so this guy has done well. You have constant, um, you have constant fights about the efficiency, about uh, the readiness of our army, our navy, our air force. In fact, I mean, we constantly hear from Defense Web and people like that. The Air Force seems to have a lot of helicopters, all kinds of planes on the ground rather than in the air. The Navy, I mean, I think we don't even have a submarine, or we only have one that's going at the moment. Most of them are just sitting in the dock in Simonstown. This is not a military that's sort of amazing. And yet here we have the chiefs of the same playing around with politics. So I don't know what I don't even know where to start when people like these are beginning to make political sounds. They shouldn't be. They should be fixing. There was a report in December about the Navy barracks in Cape Town. Kids sign up and they don't even have decent places to sleep. And yet we have the same people who should be fixing those problems banging on about politics. Totally something they shouldn't be near. That's my view on this. On this.
And being allowed to do so. I mean, that's one last point on the military. I think it is about them venturing into politics and being allowed to venture into politics. The very head of the Navy, I think during the course of last year, several times speaking out about attacking Treasury and accusing the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury of sabotaging South Africa's security, if in effect, basically accusing them just of treason, because the SANDF was not being allocated enough money, according to him. As we all know, Treasury has priorities, and everybody gets money according to what the country can afford. But in this particular case, what seems to be happening, and a lot of analysts and experts have said so, is that even with the budgetary constraints that the country faces, even with the money that the military is given, it is badly managed. It's not just a question of them not having enough money. Even what they already have is not managed properly, and hence you find that equipment is in disrepair, and the troops are not well looked after, that the accommodations are derelict, etc., etc. So I think that there does need to be a very firm hand from the very top, and the very top means that it is the head of the republic, the commander in chief, who needs to take charge.
But you're saying the commander-in-chief has no spine.
I have no confidence that anything is going to happen. And I think that he will serve out how many years left now? Up until 2029, the remaining 3 years of his term, basically just coasting along as we have come to expect him to. But as you do, we have to live in hope that, that he will do something at some point.
Yeah, I want to move on, Mondli, but can I bring in something that I hope won't be a feature of our show in the future? But it's not a conspiracy, but it's something that I wonder about aloud about. And it's this. You spoke about policy and that South Africa has the right to make its choices. If South Africa wants to be friends with Iran, then that it makes the choice and it will suffer or enjoy the consequences of that decision. And that's the way policy should work. That's how it should be. My question and my worry is that I'm sitting here, you're sitting here saying Cyril Ramaphosa should do this, should do that, and so forth. But what if he absolutely agrees with General Rizani Maponya when General Rizani Maponya said, allegedly said, we give our military and political support to Iran. And so Cyril Ramaphosa is not acting to discipline, to find out, to get to the root of all this, but it's merely just playing along that, we'll get through the noise by saying there's a board of inquiry and the noise will die down like it died down last year, like it died down in other matters, and we'll just keep going. I mean, otherwise, the spinelessness story is one aspect. Yes, Ramaphosa could be that he's spineless and doesn't act in the face of a clear constitutional violation. But it could be that he says, Comrade Maponya, thank you so much. Keep going. No?
No, I don't think so. I think he does believe, as we all do, in the sovereignty of South Africa and the right of South Africa to make its sovereign decisions. But he also has to manage a relationship with the world's still most powerful nation. He has to manage relations with a very erratic individual who is at the helm of that particular power, of that particular world power. And so, he's the country, the president of the country, and the country itself has to be practical about things. And one of the practicalities is that, yes, there will be tension with the United States, there will be tension with all our partners, but you do not create unnecessary crises. We have seen over the past week or two how the United States is provoking, is basically kind of like picking an unprovoked fight with NATO, with its European allies over Greenland. And those guys, Europe has been playing very nicely with Donald Trump. Oh, there we go again, talking about Donald Trump, but we can't avoid to do so. And it has come to nothing. Regardless of how nicely you play with him, he will go out of his way to mess you up. But you do nonetheless try to be okay. And in the case of South Africa, not having Iran be part of those exercises is a way of playing nice, of trying to play nicely with him. And so for the military to just go out of its way to try and upset that attempt to play nicely with somebody who does not like being played nicely with in the first place, was highly irresponsible. And as you point out, I mean, like it's a gross defiance of a direct chain of command.
Yeah, Wendy, it's always wonderful in January to see the matric results come out, and you see this wonderful kids, so full of hope, so full of ambition, and so fresh faced. And oh yes, 9 A's or 9, 10 distinctions here, and it's wonderful. It's great. But every year we all sit there with some trepidation, with some kind of, are we doing the right thing? What has been your takeaway from these metric results? Are we getting education right? Is Hammanskraal High? Let me see my high school is Dr. A.T. Morosela High School. You know, becoming a school that parents in Mabopane, in Winterfeld, in Harangur can say this is a school that can stand alongside some of the best schools in the country. How are we doing?
You know, there is this what they call a hardy annual. I mean, like every time at this time of year, experts and analysts and everybody is trotted out to basically to give an assessment of, I mean, like, what does this all mean? What does an improvement in the percentage really mean? And every year the story is the same. Basically, people saying that, yes, it's great that you kind of like that the percentage, that the matric pass rate has improved by 2%, by 3%, or whatever. But actually, what is the quality of the people who have come out of the system? And one of the things that always comes out is this really scary thing about the number of people who actually begin grade 1 and those who actually finish grade 12. But how many young people, how many kids drop out along the way? And that they actually, whatever it is, it's 87%, 88%, matric pass rate is actually not that at all. I mean, like if you had to actually calculate what came out, I mean, like the people who started at the beginning and finished at the end. And that's the one thing. And then the second thing is, okay, those who did finish, what kind of what product are they? Is it the product that we need to be running the economy, to be a key part of basically what South Africa needs, the skills that South Africa needs and needs to create? Do they have that skills base? And again, what usually comes out is that actually many of them are unemployable in the modern economy, and a lot of them actually cannot make it even into TVET institutions because they just simply do not have the level of numeracy, the levels of literacy that is required in industry. And so I think we do need to go back to the drawing board and actually ask a question about, are our schools centers of excellence? Obviously not every single school in South Africa can be a center of excellence, but do we have those centers of excellence that used to be there in the past? You speak about the high school in Hammanskraal that was renowned for producing good pupils. There were, and every township, every city in South Africa, you can point out that this school, There were 3 or 4 schools in every city that basically were centers of excellence. Some of them were private. Some of them were run by churches, and great leaders came out of those schools. But some
Yeah.
were basic government-run schools that just had great leaders, great teachers, and they produced some of the great minds that you see around today. And do we still have those? And if not, how do we make sure that we still manage to have those schools that are centers of excellence, that produce your professors, your engineers, your big accountants, your leaders? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things that really confounds me about our system and our place at the moment in the world is how, towards the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, there are parents chasing and queuing and sleeping overnight outside some schools to get. I apologize for this. There's tree cutting outside, and it's a bit noisy every so often. What I find amazing is this: parents trying to get their kids, parents from townships, particularly parents from who've moved up in middle class, parents trying to get their kids into formerly so-called model C schools, or in Pretoria in particular, into uh, Afrikaans medium schools, because those schools are seen as better. That we're still chasing this reality or mirage of better schools are in formerly white areas, as such. So you still have this. I basically see black parents in particular killing themselves to put kids into these schools, and my contention and my worries were that, to the point you make, those excellent schools in black townships, in Soweto, in Soshanguve, in Mabopane, so that
And
actually,
Guamash,
in Guamashu,
you
all
have to
over
mention Guamash. Okay.
Guamashu, Umlazi.
No. You can leave Umlazi out of it. Let's focus on Guamash.
Duncan is from Lazi, so please. Uh, so Mitchell's Plain, Google it, you all those places. But I think something is wrong here when the idea of excellence and the idea that through their attempts to enroll, most black South Africans are still saying there's better quality, not where I am, but where the system used to put a lot of money, and those are white, formerly white schools, pre 1994 schools, and we are 31 years into this democracy. Is this what's still happening? How can this still be happening?
And justice that has other tragic consequences. This Monday, we woke up, all of us, to the news that 12 kids were killed in a horrific car crash in scholar transport on their way to school in the Vaal. And this happens almost every year, and sometimes even more than once in a year, that kids are moving from one part of a town or city to another part. And basically, it speaks to your point about that parents do not have confidence in the township school, and so they pay exorbitant amounts to put their kids in scholar transport, which is often not very roadworthy, and sometimes actually kind of like, which is being driven by reckless drivers, and it ends up in a tragedy like that. Whereas if there was a school down the road, a kilometer away, 2 kilometers away, and there would be no need for this mass migration
Yeah.
of our children to what are perceived to be better schools in formerly white neighborhoods.
It's a failure, Mundli.
Yeah, I mean, but it is a failure that is highly, highly preventable, and it is a failure that I think that those who lead our country should be hanging their heads in shame in not actually answering the call to say, I mean, like, what have we done to this, to our schooling system over the past 31 years or so? It's not a nostalgic thing. And some people kind of like mistake it for a hankering for the past. When people say that during those days of apartheid, kind of like during the days of Bantu education, that the outcome of the education system, as oppressive as it was actually better than it is today. I don't necessarily hold to that view, but I think what you did have back then was our teachers, the school leaders, actually in defiance of what Hendrik Verwoerd and his people wanted, that they actually went out of their way to teach Black kids and to produce good, solid Black children, Black, like to make sure that the schooling system actually produced good products. It wasn't because the Bantu education was any superior to what we have now. What we have now is much, much more superior to what Bantu education was. But are schools functioning properly? Are they being made to function in such a way that they produce people who can fit into this modern economy and help create the South Africa that we want?
And it's possible. It's so possible, Wendy. When I think about when I got to university, I remember kids from Mbilwi High School in the former Venda in the far north in Limpopo. I remember kids from Tsoho High School in Harangua. They were they arrived. They had fantastic passes from their schools. These were not schools that were in formerly white areas, or these were schools in townships that did incredible work. You look at the head of ESCOM today, you look at Patrice Motsepe. These are people from Tsoho High School. You look at, when we talk about South Africans who've worked at NASA or scientists all over the world, they come from Bilu High School. So these are possible in our townships, in communities across South Africa, and in areas that where Black people live proudly in the suburbs in Johannesburg and elsewhere in the country. So it's possible to do these things, and we just haven't done them. But maybe we should move on. Do you want to get into politics, because we've begun the political year, and the DA and the ANC and who's doing what? Do you want to talk about the DA for a little bit before we say bye?
Well, we did touch on the DA in one of our previous episodes about the fact that there are so many ructions happening in the DA. And things came to a head last week when the former minister in the GNU, Dion George, who's a senior figure, who was a senior figure in the party, resigned very dramatically and on television and accused, and he said the DA has been captured by the ANC via John Steenhuisen, its party leader. And he was very scathing of his party. And it seems that what is happening is that the DA, having in the past tried very hard to contain its rifts and its factionalism internally, now has its dirty laundry being aired by its own members. The factions are out. And so it's seemingly just behaving just like the ANC once used to be. And it's critical that this is happening now in an election year, when the DA should be focusing on basically on winning some major metros and municipalities as it has clearly said that it's going to do. It has even led to its former leader, Tony Leon, warning the party that voters do not like it when parties are so internally focused and not outwardly focused. So it remains to be seen whether the DA is able to consolidate behind its leader and a common vision in the run-up to and during its conference in April, where it's supposed to elect new leadership or reconfirm the current leadership. So it's got a tough few months ahead, the DA, and then whether that leadership is then able to carry the party to a better result come October, November, whenever the local government election is held.
That conference is going to be crucial. I think it's worth sitting down with some of the leaders of the DA. Maybe over the next few months we should bring our audience, a chat with with some of the leaders to say what exactly is happening to the DA, and actually whether a conference like the one that's coming up will settle things. I see young leaders, Sivue Gwarube, is saying I might possibly be ready to do this. Soli Malatsi has been mentioned. Not Dion George, Jordan Hill Lewis has been mentioned many times as a possible challenger or successor to John Steenhuisen. Is that conference a referendum on Steenhuisen's leadership? Will it be that way?
Well, I do think that, like people always say, this is the most crucial, when the ANC goes to conference, the most crucial ANC conference in its history. This is going to be, indeed. And I think that, but I do think that for the DA, it is probably the most crucial one. I think the 2016 conference, where the 2016 or 2015, where Mmusi Maimane was elected leader, was very key in terms of how the DA saw itself going forward. But I think this one is going to be even more important because it's the first one that's occurring while the DA is in national government. And beyond leadership, I think what's going to be important is like how it sees itself, how it sees its place in the South African political and socio-political firmament. I think leadership is obviously going to be very important, but I do expect that they'll probably try to basically to line up behind the current leader, who is John Steenhuisen. It's always unwise and unadvisable for a political party to change leadership in an election year. I suspect they'll stick with the same rider. There will be changes at different levels. Like new blood being added to the federal executive, etc., etc. But I think that Steenhuisen they'll probably end up with him going into this election, rather than bringing in somebody who now has to implant themselves into the minds and consciousness of South Africans.
For me, the key thing about the DA and what it's going through now is what does it mean for the GNU in particular, for the DA in the GNU and for the GNU as an entity, whether, over the past year and a half since the deal was struck in July 2024, the DA comes out and says, this is a red line. This is a red line. Ramaphosa, if you cross this, we are leaving. And then Ramaphosa crosses the red line and it's, oh, come, let's talk, please. But we're staying, and they stay. So we've had these scares over the year and a half that, oh no, it's the end of the GNU, and what does it mean for stability? What does it mean for South Africa? And the capital markets go a bit crazy. Oh no, 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 it's the end of it, and we don't know what the future looks like. So I think for me this year I'll be looking out for, does a Steenhuisen stay mean stability of the GNU? And that gives Ramaphosa a massive chance to continue with the reforms that look like they could be good for the country. Um, Whether we have another year of stability in which Ramaphosa, Godongwana, Steenhuisen himself, then, hopefully take the economy to 2-3% growth instead of being stuck at minus, between 0 and 1, if that. Um, uh, I I kind of see your point that the DA will probably stick with Steenhuisen. And if it does, then I think that we have a sort of smooth ride, if you will, for another year for the economy, and perhaps even the sort of blows from a massive player like the United States and its leader Donald Trump, at least for now.
No, certainly. I think that, and what this conference will do will be that the DA has to define what its role is in this GNU. And it will be a chance for those who are critics of the GNU within the DA to, for the first time, voice what they see as wrong. Because there are lots of people within the DA who still see the DA as an opposition party. We must oppose the ANC. We must differentiate ourselves from the ANC. And it will be a chance for them to voice themselves, and for the DA to come up with now a more considered view of what it is, what kind of animal it is in national government.
This is politics. Mondli, thank you. It's been lovely chatting to you. We'll chat again later in the week or next week and talk more politics, more issues. South Africa is so full of fantastic things to talk about. So stay close to us as we discuss, as we disagree respectfully. And please visit our website. Please click on the subscribe button on your screen. Please follow us. Please subscribe. Please go to Apple or wherever you get your podcasts and listen to us there as you go jogging, as you go walking, as you exercise and do other things around the house, take the kids to school. We're always available to you. Also, please comment and send us your views. We enjoy them, we love them, and every so often we will respond to them. So keep playing with us, keep listening, keep joining us. We look forward to next week. Bye-bye.